7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Howdy, CROC Nation. Dr. Tommy and Ellie here with you, with Dr. Angel Santana from Have Faith, Let It Begin. And we have a special guest today. Angel Santana, would you like to do the honors?
Listen, let me tell you something. We have had many guests on our show, but there is not one brighter. There's not one more eloquent. And so I'm going to use the word delicious. And that is Miss Eloise. How are you, Eloise?
I'm feeling excellent. And thank you, Pastor, for the outstanding, overwhelming introduction. Thank you so much. I appreciate your describing me. I hope I can live up to those expectations. And
Angel,
the way you characterize me. Thank you so much.
Angel, you know I'm not going to let you upstage me, so I'm going to go one step further. So let me tell you guys out there in the CROC Nation a little bit about Miss Eloise. So I know her for many years. We took care of her for her cancer, which she is absolutely on top of and already dealt with, and she's moved on to the next step. And that's her survivorship. And I have to tell you, there's no one I've ever met that has more of a zest for life. I have never met anyone who has more glamour. And I don't mean that in a superficial way. I mean that in the most, complimentary internal way about having someone who is just such a reflection of joy, such a reflection of gratitude, such a reflection of style. Those of you who watch us on YouTube will see her amazing red hat. Angel, I think that's going to be our new uniform. We're going to wear red hats on the podcast moving forward.
I agree.
And our dear beloved co-board member, Jane O'Malley, whose birthday is today, of all things, so it works out really well, said to me, because we have two of the members of the board are cancer survivors, and for different reasons haven't been able to really participate as much. So Jane asked me if I was recruiting any more survivors for the board, and I said, yeah, we would love to have somebody join us. And she said, I have just the person for you. I have Miss Eloise. So Eloise, I hope I did as good of a job describing you as Angel did. Angel, do you believe I gave her as good an introduction as you?
Absolutely.
Thank you both. I am just so pleased. And when you were taking care of me, Dr. E, your style, your dress, your conversation uplifted me. And I didn't think about myself. I just thought about living life. And I appreciate you. You're priceless.
Well, I will say that we are cut from the same stone. That's for sure. We are cut from the same cloth for sure.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. So I wanted to just kind of, there is actually, besides the introduction of a new board member to our CROC Nation, to our survivors out there, I really wanted Eloise to be part of this podcast for more than that, because she does have a story to tell, and she does have some lessons for you guys to learn from. Because even though Angel and I love you guys, and even though Angel and I would take a bullet for you guys, and even though Angel and I will do anything we can to make your survivorship better, we are not in your shoes. So to have some representation on the board from cancer survivors is utmost, and to have it from such an inspiring woman is even that's more even gravy, right? That's the cherry on top of the sundae. So Eloise, let me start by asking you just quickly, where you grew up, your life journey before cancer, and then I want to know the day that you were diagnosed with cancer.
Okay, I was born in the Bronx 71 years ago, and I was educated in the Bronx. I went to Lehman College, received my undergraduate degree. Then for my first master's, I attended City College. And moving forward, I came to this area just for a vacation and ended up staying 45 years later.
I love it. What was your occupation?
I was a teacher, and then my last job, I was a principal. or director for pre-K. I had a multitude of jobs working with the Middletown Board of Education. And it was an experience, a
Oh, I
nice,
bet.
great experience.
Oh,
Yes,
I'm
I
sure
met,
it was.
I guess I've always been in the helping business. So fast forward when I became a grandma, because I have a son 44, and when I became a grandma, my volunteerism in the community and at his school, my grandson just extended at the Montessori school in Middletown. And that's when I noticed a pain in my leg in December of 2020, December of 2012, I'm sorry. And I thought it was the gout because earlier, maybe 2 years before that, I was diagnosed with the gout. So, and I would always get it in my knee, and that's where the pain was. Fast forward, I went through the holiday vacation and season, and January 6th, I went to Middletown Medical for an x-ray. I thought I had the gout. And the doctor on call said to me, that doesn't look like the gout. Pull your pants down. She said, I don't see any redness. And she sent me for the x-ray and the lesion was above my knee. That was the myeloma. So I was diagnosed January 6th and January 11th, my femur broke.
Wow.
So I
And
went.
let me ask you this. You are an angel, you chime in too. I've never met a more positive person. When that day came, that January 6th, did you need time to collect yourself?
I was in denial. My
Yeah.
son brought me a cane. He brought it from the pharmacy, and I wanted to renew my grandson's library card. So I hobbled and drove to Port Jervis. Maybe that was the 7th. And my leg was, I could feel the lesion. It was so heavy on my feet. The 8th, I picked him up from school, and we usually have an out January, we had an indoor activity, probably some lunch and something going on at the mall. We had the Borders bookstore then, so they would have weekly reading programs. That Thursday, I went to the doctor, Dr. Jeffrey Stewart in Middletown, and he just looked at me. I don't believe he even looked at my leg. And that next morning, I got up to take a shower and take my grandson to school. That was the 11th of January on a Friday. And when I was getting out of the bathtub, my femur broke. And Dr. Jeffrey Stewart said, I should have put you in the hospital that Thursday night.
I have a question.
He should have put you in prison. He should have put you behind bars, Eloise.
Thank you.
Thing.
Here's my question to you, Eloise. You said that you were in denial. Can you just describe, not obviously we know what that word means, but can you explain a little bit about when you said you were in denial? What were you in denial of? That you refused to admit that you had something, that they had already told you had this, and then when you said you were in denial, what was, can you give me an example what that meant to you?
I've always been the type of person that I did my annuals. I would stay up on my health. So for me to have something wrong and I couldn't do anything about it, or I didn't have answers, that bothered me. That was a challenging time for me. And I just said, God, give me the strength to keep going. Give me the strength to take care of my grandson, which I enjoy doing. We went someplace every day. His mom and dad said, Grandma, you have to slow down. He's tired. You're not tired. He's tired. So I refused to give up. And I just said, I'm going to continue to go. When my son found an orthopedic oncologist renowned at North Shore LIJ in Manhasset, Long Island, he transferred me after 8 days of being at Garnett with nothing but morphine. They didn't know how to treat me or treat my problem. So he had the ambulance take me to North Shore LIJ, and I believe I stayed there 5 days. I was operated on January 15th, and I believe I went to Sapphire for rehab for 3 months. And I
Wow.
was
What a
rolling
story.
around in a wheelchair because I
Oh my
couldn't put
God.
weight on my leg.
Oh
And when I
geez.
was diagnosed,
No,
they
finish.
I was playing bingo. I came back and played bingo.
So when you broke your femur, was that when it hit you and said, okay, now I know there's something? Were you still in refusal? Were you still in denial even then?
Yes, yes, yes. It
I
didn't
gotta tell you,
sink in.
you may have been in denial, but let me tell you something, kid. That attitude, that I'll tell you, there is no cancer on earth that could that could that could clobber you. That's all I have to say.
Oh, thank you so much. I just refused. I said, I know God has more work for me to do. I just prayed. I read Psalm 121 while I was at Sapphire. And I said, God, whatever it is, I still didn't know um, until March, I believe, when I met you, March 18th,
Yep.
2013. And I
Yep.
thank God for that day. Because
Oh my God.
whenever I told someone that I had cancer, I looked at their face. And the old cliche, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I said, God, I'm not going to allow man to dictate my journey. You are in control. You have purpose for me. And I just said, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I didn't ask any questions of God. I didn't ask too many about to the doctor. I said to my son, Dr. Kanan, the oncologist, doesn't talk. And he says, Ma, all I want you to do is get well. I was ready to joke and have fun. Yeah,
I
so
love it. So many great lessons, Angel, for our survivors out there. Attitude, toughness, courage, and humor. Eloise, I swear you're the perfect fit to this board. We had dinner with Eloise maybe a month ago when she was introduced to the board, and I'll tell you, she was the life of the table. You just have a sense of life. If you were a color, you would be the brightest yellow, like the sun. You just shine, Eloise. You just
thank you.
shine. And I actually as we close out the episode in a few minutes, I did want to challenge you because one of the other things that happens in a 501c not for profit group is that many times you have too much of the same. It's a very homogeneous, ethnic backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, personal backgrounds, spiritual backgrounds. You try to get a very nice, eclectic mix of everything, and that's what creates
Yes,
a great board. And you know better than I do. You were very lucky. Your son was a stellar, law enforcement man who was well respected by his peers. So he had a lot of influence and helped you get to where you had to be. But one of the problems that we're facing for our survivor thrivers in the Middletown area and the Hudson Valley area, where there's a lot of socioeconomic, disparity, meaning there's the haves and the have-nots. There's
yes,
a lot of health inequities between people of color and people who are not of color, and there's a lot of prejudice and bias, especially against women. So
oh
I
yes,
really think, and I see a role for you on this board as being a champion, as being a community, liaison for our podcast,
yes,
to help not just women, but women, men, people who are of no means, be able to kind of channel in to get the information that they need to make their survivorship as productive, as unbelievably stupendous, and as inspiring as yours. Angel, your thoughts?
Well, as we like to do here on this on the Croc podcast, we always like to give some type of a sports analogy. And I like to take the moment to take a take this off of Dr. E's shoulders here. I want to quote Vince Scully, who said, if one picture is worth 1,000 words, then everyone that's listening to today's episode has heard about 1,000,000 words. But what I would like to say is, to reiterate what Dr. E said about ELOISE, there is a glow about her. There is something about her that shines for all of us and allows us the opportunity to be in her presence. And I think that when we are on this show, we constantly talk about people that are courageous, people that are strong, people that are use their spirituality to gain strength, to overcome adversity, to overcome the obstacles that are given to us. And ELOISE just is a huge advocate of that. But more importantly, she's a direct reflection of what I would consider a great quote from Deuteronomy, and it's, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified, because the Lord God gives you all the strength, and he will never forsaken you. Give us the power to all men and women, to give them strength and courage. And I pray that you continue to have great health and great success on your new path to righteousness.
Thank you.
That's so beautiful.
So
Thank
much.
you, Angel. That was beautiful.
Yes,
And by
thank
the
you.
way, Angel, was the Vince Scully quote 1986 World Series Game 6?
Absolutely.
There you go. So, ELOISE, this is the part of the podcast where I give my blessing, and I want to just share this blessing with you, because you are the inspiration of today's podcast. And I want to tell all of you survivor thrivers out there, all of you undergoing difficulty, all of you guys who are scared and afraid, all of you who don't even believe what your doctors have just told you that you have
That's
cancer.
right.
To all of you people out there who are suffering from cancer, suffering from the side effects of treatment, or suffering with the fear that you're not going to see tomorrow, I want you guys not to use my example, not to use Angel's example. I want you to use ELOISE's example of fearlessness, of swagger, of style, of humor, of intelligence, of love, of spirituality, and of glow. And if you do take 10% of what ELOISE told you to do today, you guys will have a much better survivorship. I want to just end this podcast the same as I end every single podcast, wishing all of you out there a very long, healthy, happy, and cancer-free life. God be with you. God bless you. Peace.
Thank you so much.